Alright, we're going to talk today about the Pythagorean theorem. Do you remember it? Hopefully from middle school, maybe you do. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, or leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So, because here specifically you need to say that c is the hypotenuse. Alright, so what kind of triangle do you need? Do you remember? A right triangle. And which side is the hypotenuse? Do you remember that one? It should be opposite the right angle. Opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse, so C is your hypotenuse. Okay, now when do we use the Pythagorean theorem? When we're given a right triangle, we know two sides, and we need to find the third. That's when we use the Pythagorean theorem. So in this first example, across from the right angle, this is the hypotenuse, that's what we don't know, so that's our C. Doesn't matter which goes in for A and B, obviously in this case because they're the same, but in any other case, for example, this triangle, 6 root 2 and x, doesn't matter which one goes in for A and which one goes in for B. That's fine. So, in the first one, we have leg squared times leg squared, so 5 squared plus 5 squared equals x squared, because that's our C. We use one for A, one for B. A squared plus B squared equals C squared when you plug it in. Okay, so 5 squared is 25, so we have 25 plus 25 is 50. 50 equals x squared. How do we solve? Okay, this is, I'm going to do a little side note and do another piece of paper, or another paper here. X squared equals 50. How do we solve that? In class, we talked about when you have root 5 times root 5, that equals 5. Okay? Or another example, root 9 times root 9, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 9 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9. So root 9 times root 9 is 9. So when we have something squared equals 50, that could be root 50 times root 50 is going to equal 50. Alright, now, so if we look at it, x squared equals 50, how you can solve that is by taking the square root. Alright, because a square root and a squared, those are inverse operations. So if you do the square root of x squared, we know that equals x. The square root of 50, one thing we need to add to that, not something that's going to come into play with the triangles, but just so you are aware, x here could be plus or minus 50, for the reason that positive root 50 times positive root 50 equals 50, and negative root 50 times negative root 50 also equals 50. Okay, you can have two answers there. So x equals plus or minus root 50. Now, can we simplify root 50? Yeah, and you should. What perfect square goes into 50? 25 times 2. What's the square root of 25? 5. Root 2 we don't know, so x would be plus or minus root 5. However, because in this case, x is the length of the hypotenuse, x is just going to be the positive square root, and we just simplify that to 5 root 2. Okay, so the next one, here's your right triangle, A, B, and C, because C is hypotenuse across from the right angle. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. C squared is easy. 10 squared is 100. 6 root 2 squared. Well, that means we do 6 root 2 times 6 root 2. 6 times 6 is 36. Root 2 times root 2 is 2. 36 times 2 is 72. So that's 72. Now we subtract the 72. 100 minus 72 is 28. So since x squared equals 28, let's go over to our other page. We have x squared equals 28. Well, if x squared equals 28, x must have been the square root of 28. Once again, it would be plus or minus, but because we are dealing with length, We know we're not going to have a negative length, so we're going to say the square root of 28, positive square root. Can we simplify? Yes. What perfect square goes into 28? 4. 4 times 7 is 28. Square root of 4 is 2. Root 7 we don't know. So x equals 2 root 7. So back on our page here, x would be the square root of 28, which we know to be 2 root 7. That's your value of x. Okay, so those are 2 examples. Now you're going to go on. Here's your you try page for examples, some where x is the hypotenuse, and then some, 3 of them where x is the hypotenuse, and then 1 where x is not the hypotenuse. Okay, so once you're set up, you want to remember a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where c equals the hypotenuse. Okay, so go ahead and try those ones, and that's it. We will talk about these on the next class.